I've been privileged to be joined in the studio by the lead consultant of Legacy and Legacy, that's Reverend Albert Ocran, who's going to be looking at the prospects of the festival and the whole subject of strategic repositioning. Reverend Albert Ocran is joining us in the studio. Reverend, good morning.
Good morning, Murray. Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for passing by as well. It's been a while. First time here in our studios, right?
It's a blessing to be here.
Oh, it's a blessing to have you in the studio as well, Reverend. But how are you doing?
Learning every day. Life is a gift,
Right.
Life is a gift. Right. And through all the changing scenes of life, we learn, we grow, and we become better people.
What is the whole history behind this festival of idea? What's the background to this? I mean, why have you decided to create such a concept?
Right. So, for the benefit of our wonderful listeners this morning, the concept of the Festival of Ideas, as you probably know by now, Legacy and Legacy is basically about challenging people to build themselves up with knowledge-based products and events. And we have Springboard that targets the youth, the young adults, the graduates, those who have just started businesses and so on. And then we have Teenpreneurship that looks at teenagers. And this festival was targeted at business leaders, thought leaders, public sector officials, and those who make decisions at the top level. And the original name of the program when it started in 2007 was the Infopreneurship Conference. The idea being that information can be an asset, a tool for building great societies. And so from the very first event at the National Theatre, we found out that over 1,000 people gathered just to brainstorm at the time, and the first theme was also the theme of the conference, the name itself,
right?
Information as a tool for building businesses and building great societies,
right? And
this will be the 8th edition because every year consecutively we've held this conference. And I must say that with time we've refined the concept. As with everything that we do in life, we want to get better at what we do. So we refined the concept to make it more relevant to the needs of the society. And so with time we have evolved from the Infopreneurship Conference to the Festival of Ideas. Because as we went on, we began to realize that really ideas build societies, and great thinkers and great doers build great societies. And so at every stage in our evolution as a nation, as businesses, we wanted to create a forum where we can gravitate around ideas. Sometimes all it takes is one good idea. Listening to the previous discussions before we came in, it comes down to real ideas that work. And if we can congregate as leaders, thought leaders, to put our ideas together, we can fashion out solutions that can help us move forward as individuals, as companies, as non-profit organizations, and even more importantly, as a nation.
Well, I say wonderful. How are you gauging success? I mean, how are you after 7 years of doing this, telling yourself that it's not a waste of time? What have been your benchmarks? What have been your key performance indicators?
Continued relevance is built on the wings of the network of leaders that we have built over the years. And next week, Thursday, you will see probably, if I may say so myself, the finest gathering of the most critical business leaders in this country in the evening session. And that is because over the years, credibility has been built has been enabled by the fact that people have seen the plethora of leaders that have come through. Literally everyone who is managing a significant entity in this country has come through the festival at one time or another. And it's not just about the names, it's also about what has happened to people that started the journey with us. And it is quite heartwarming and humbling to note that people who started entities around the time of the very first festival have gone on to grow these entities to become significant players, some of which are actually Ghana Club 100 companies as we speak today. So even for its own sake, just creating a platform where we can think, where we can debate workable solutions is itself a reward. Let's face it, Moro, in the discussion you held with Mr. Abraham Kumsin a few minutes ago, he came across and said, so what do we do next? Because there have been demonstrations. There's been a lot of social pressure. But at the end of the day, we also need to create a congenial environment where the players themselves say, okay, so this is where I am. And going forward, this is what I have done that has worked. let's look at this other alternative as well. And really, it's not a zero-sum game. You don't need to lose for me to win. There are workable solutions that some leaders have used that everyone can use to their advantage.
Right.
And so just the brain power of having a number of successful leaders, all of whom may probably admit that we are going through a very crucial phase in our lives as a nation. The brain power of having them all gather at one place and brainstorm is itself a great incentive for doing this once again. So relevance is measured, first of all, by the network of leaders that we have built over the years, the database of successful companies that have come to the festival, and then the continued interest of corporate Ghana in the event as a leading platform for thought leadership.
That's great. That's awesome. Let's come back to let's get to brass tacks here and look at the theme for this year's Festival of Ideas, and you're looking at strategic repositioning. For the layman out there who doesn't understand what is first of all, what is positioning?
Right, you almost, when you said the layman, I felt like using football because I've learned in my years as an author that one of the easiest ways to explain anything in this country is to use football. So let me use football, and then I'll come to the real talk. So positioning, repositioning, you probably are looking at a striker who spends most of their time in their own penalty box. The likelihood is that they may score a goal, but it will be an own goal.
Right.
And so when the coach examines the team that is not getting results and says, you striker, move to the opponent's penalty box or somewhere around there, you are changing the person's positioning in order to create some advantage and give them the likelihood of scoring is greater. Scoring the right kind of goal is greater. So really, repositioning is about reassigning something, relocating something with a view to creating new opportunities or giving some advantage. If I reposition myself to a place of disadvantage, it's not repositioning.
Right.
Strategic repositioning in that regard is looking at the corporate, looking at the business entity and the strategy that you are using and asking yourself, where am I? Where am I trying to go? Is this strategy helping me get there, or I need to redefine my spaces and make some changes?
Right.
And obviously, we fixed this theme at the beginning of the year, and time has proven that it is probably the most relevant theme that we have chosen in the 8-year history of the festival.
Really?
Because looking at where we are now, every business leader would admit that there is a need to reposition yourself. Talking to many of them, you realize that half-year results have been quite challenging. And they are very open and happy to admit that, or honest enough to admit that the first half has been very challenging. Now, I spoke to a board chairman who said they typically meet once a quarter, but as I speak, they sometimes meet as frequently as every week.
They have already started repositioning as well.
The variables that undergird their strategic plan or their projections for the year are changing so rapidly that if they want to wait for even a month to meet, things could get out of hand. And so that makes it imperative that we reposition.
I see. And, when we talk about strategic repositioning, when we're just looking at it in the spheres of organizations and institutions repositioning, can an individual reposition themselves as well? Absolutely.
If in using the words of Abraham Lincoln, if I look at where I am and I don't like where I am, and I look at what I've done to bring me here, I look at the future and see where I'm going and I don't like it, there's a time to make rapid change or instant change, and that time is now. And so you will realize that individuals, organizations, and even as a nation need to re-examine the approach we are using to try and get the results that we want. And you will find that if we are honest enough, we will admit that some things must be done differently. I was reading up on change management yesterday, and I revisited my notes on the ADKAR model. The ADKAR model of change is ADKAR. And it says that first there must be an awareness of the need. So for us all as a nation, one of the things that has been a point of difference is even being able to define what the current situation is. And we are not being honest enough to be able to come around the table and say, listen, no matter where you belong, let's face it, this is where we are. It's not even about who got us here. Really, we are there already. Whether we got here by one person's action or another, it's not the most critical thing.
Right.
I think that we must be able to build consensus about where we are, because that is when we can move to the next stage, which is a desire. And if we all desire to move from where we are to a higher point, then we have done the A, we have done the D. Then the third one is knowledge. Knowledge about what we need to do to get to where we are, to where we want to go. Obviously, no matter which side of the divide you belong to, there is a clear understanding that we want to move to a certain point. At least we want to make sure that jobs are secure, the economy is still growing and expanding, the currency is more stable, the fundamentals, the rising costs are stemmed and everything. These are basics that we all can agree about. And so the need for relevant knowledge comes in. The fourth one is the ability to implement the change. And the fifth one is the reinforcement mechanism. That as we go forward, how do we ensure that this change will be sustainable? I mean, we can go to IMF. Beyond IMF, how do we ensure that whatever prescriptions are put in place are sustainable? So these are heavy-duty thought subjects that we need leaders to converge around and brainstorm about. And it must be done in an environment that is conducive. Somebody says, why do you go to a hotel? I said, listen, it's important to understand that there is a place for every single kind of activity.
Right.
There are things you do in church. There are things you do in the forest, prayer retreat. And there are things you do in the right environment that would enable that kind of event. And that is why we've held the festival very often in world-class environments that enable leaders to bring out the best, create the ambience that allows people to, without acrimony, no matter where you belong, let's talk, let's brainstorm, let's build forward.
I see. That's perhaps a lesson as well for corporate organizations, that if you want to engage in some kind of a brainstorming activity, you also need to be mindful of the where.
Absolutely. Why would people travel all the way to as far as
Senchi and so on, to go and brainstorm?
Because you need to get out of your regular environment. Sometimes just having, I've done quite a number of retreats for companies for mid-year, and many of them, they get out of the regular workplace because the same environment within which you operate can even limit your creativity.
Right. So limit your thinking.
Changing the environment, bringing on board new faces and a very good ambience just enables that thought leadership, that creativity that brings about the good thinking that you need at a time like this.
I'm a regular listener of your of your show. I think it's called a Springboard, isn't it?
The Virtual University, Springboard, the Virtual
University
yes.
on a sister station as Joy FM. And one of the things that you've always gotten your interviewees or your guests to talk about it's got to do with the implications of rising costs and currency devaluation, also the uncertainty for various categories of listeners. Why the focus on that?
Because no matter what you do, you realize that everything that happens in the macro environment, everything that happens in the wider space affects the individual.
Right.
People are interested players. Companies are players. Even the student who pays their ACCA bills in pounds or dollars is a player.
No, that's it.
So everything that happens within the macro space affects somebody. And so we want to always drill it down to say, at the end of the day, what is the effect of all these things on companies? Some companies are quietly laying their workers off. That worker who goes home, what do they do next? Even if you manage to give them a package, how do they feed their families? How do they feed their... So it has implications for companies. Companies reporting rising costs. It just means that you made a projection at the beginning of the year. You said you will grow 20% year on year. You were very confident about that projection. You may find out that projection might have been affected by rising cost or by the shrinking market. Or you may also find that even your value as a company has diminished in real terms, because if you are foreign shareholders, it makes it even worse, because if they valued the company in a particular way, let's say a certain number of dollars, and as a result of the currency devaluation, they were revaluing the company, or they were just taking a sense of where we are,
right,
they would not be too pleased by what you are being able to produce, because they would measure it in foreign currency. And so you need to run faster to remain at the same place. And so for individuals, there is an implication for rising costs. There is an implication for the dollar that, or the foreign currency that is refusing to stay at one place, or a currency that is devaluating. For the companies, there is implications. For the government, there are implications. First half results have not been good. Shareholders of companies are praying that the second half, like a football match, if you are 1-0 down like Liverpool in the first half, 1-0 up like Liverpool in the first half, or 1-0 down like Manchester.
Well, it turned out to be 3-1, but that's fine.
You will turn it around to 3-1. and that's what it's all about. So this has become like a half time for many companies, trying to put their thoughts together about what will it take to turn things around in the second half of the year. And it will engage us quite a bit at the festival. How do you turn things around in the second half of the year? And you will realize that we are building it on the key pillars of every organization: your marketing effort, your strategy, and then your finance. These are the three things that drive every entity.
And these are, again, the three key areas that you're going to be looking at: finance, strategy, and then the marketing.
Yes.
And again, last Sunday when I was listening to Professor Bob Hinting talk about how you can reposition, from the marketing point of view. I mean, it was quite refreshing, to be honest. And I kept reminiscing about my marketing classes.
Yes.
Because a lot of the things that he was talking about, things that I could easily identify with. But that's not what we're here this morning to talk about. But I would want us to also look at, yes, you've talked about the fact that yes, if there's rising cost of, I mean, if you're operating within a certain macroeconomic environment, you cannot, as it were, divulge yourself from, what happens at the macro level, because it certainly will have an impact on you. And so then when you find yourself in a situation like that and you're not meeting the expectations of your shareholders, what it means is that you need to reposition. I think that's where we've come to now. Right. In trying to reposition, what are the possible options that are left for companies like that for them to explore? Right.
So the obvious ones, the most common responses, some of which I must say are panic measures, are that companies start laying off their staff. The question about downsizing is that what forms the basis for that downsizing? Do you just cut off because of age? You say the older people should go home, and will that not mean that some of your most experienced people will go? Or do you use qualifications? Or do you cut down just indiscriminately? Many people resort to laying off staff. The most obvious reaction is also cost cutting. Now, while that has its own merits, the critical thing is, in cutting down cost, where do you do the cutting? Mm-hmm. Research shows that many people cut on training and then they cut down on marketing. That tends to be problematic in itself.
Is it counterproductive?
It's counterproductive, absolutely, because every dollar you spend, every CD you spend on training has been proven by research to yield 30 CDs in return. 30 times the investment in the medium to long term.
That is if it's done properly.
Absolutely. And for every expenditure, the critical thing is that for every CD you spend in the business, you must audit it to make sure that it's giving you value. So the discussion must be value-based rather than indiscriminate cuts. So whether it is reducing your staff or downsizing, or it's cutting down your cost, the driving factor must be value. So there must be a continuous process of re-evaluating the organization to say, where are we spending? Are these our priority areas? Are we getting value for what we do? And so when you take the various blocks of the organization, you must be honest enough to re-evaluate them and say, and so in the area of public relations, in the area of production, raw materials, am I buying from the right vendor? Do I have the best arrangement in place? Am I paying too early just by getting a credit facility to pay a month later? Even if you have the cash to pay a month later, that could change the dynamic in terms of your financing arrangements. These are things that people do not take time to look at, and we just look at wholesale cost cutting or wholesale downsizing. And so in a forum like this, the third thing we also look at is waste. Some of the options available that people don't look at: waste and inefficiency. Mm-hmm. How are you doing your procurement? Are we getting the best value for your buying? Is there waste in your system, inefficiencies in your system? This will be the best time to audit your production, your operations, to take out. Can be done by one person that is being done by two. Which equipment, which software can make this a more efficient operation? And then also refinancing your business or reworking your financial arrangements. Do you have the best loan arrangement possible? Is it possible to aggregate your debts together and then repackage them under a different arrangement? So ultimately, on the marketing side, on the financing side, on the strategy side, we need to ask some critical questions of ourselves and then make some changes. And that is the best way to move this forward. But indiscriminate cuts or panic measures often bite us back later when things have settled down. You realize that upon hindsight, you made wrong choices based on fear, based on panic, or based on the feeling that we must do something. I mean, we must really do something. That is not how we build organizations for the long term.
I see. So in repositioning, as part of the repositioning, you must take what you must take department by department and look at it critically and see if every department is giving you value for money. I think that's essentially what you're talking about.
Absolutely.
But you see, you've made a point that I thought was quite interesting. It's something that we also learned in class, which is that oftentimes it's the marketing department that is hit the hardest, because a lot of the time the finance department doesn't seem to have a full appreciation of what the marketing department does, and so quickly they'll turn to the marketing department and cut their budget, and then realize that apparently the products are not being marketed enough for the products to be sold out there, for the company to be able to rake in enough revenue to turn things around. So I think that these are some of the reasons why, you know, events like this or gatherings like this are very important for us to actually figure out whether indeed it is the right decision to stifle the marketing department in your bid to cut down costs.
Right.
Because the whole thinking, obviously the general thinking is that, well, once you cut down costs, that in itself is generating revenue. But what kind of revenue are you generating?
Absolutely.
You probably might be rather,
stifling the revenue. Yes, because really, the reason why that becomes the obvious target is because it is seen as a cost rather than an investment.
That's true.
Marketing is seen as a drain rather than an investment. Because
the same has got to do with labor as well. I mean, staff. People still can't, in this 21st century, see that when you're paying staff, it's rather an investment. It's not a cost to the company.
It's the thinking. The thinking defines the actions. And once you begin to rethink the perspective about the value that every CD spent brings to the organization, then we will cut at the right places or make the right decisions. And whilst we are at it, I must also add that there are two things that drive the profit mix. I mean, the profit of an organization: the cost and then the revenue.
Right.
And so, while we may look rapidly at cost cutting, we must also look at how innovation in our marketing can increase revenue.
Right.
How we can bring on board new products, how we can change our approach, how we can redefine our marketing communication to bring in new market. Because one of the most interesting things you will find out is that every crisis brings out new heroes. And it will impress you more to find out that while the preponderance of thoughts is that many companies have had a bad first half, some companies have had an excellent first half.
Right.
Because they've done things very differently. And in a forum like this, you would hear from success stories in 2014, and you ask yourself, how do people make it in a crisis or in a challenging period? I mean, depending on which word you want to use. How do people move things forward in a difficult moment? And it's because people just do things differently when we are faced with challenges. And it is those ideas we want to congregate around. What has worked for people, and how can we share these ideas and all of us move ourselves forward?
Right. I'm going to ask you, Albert, about what role, policymakers must play in the scheme of things. There's a fundamental question which I want us to address, which is that if I want to reposition, then first of all, I need to know what my position is. Because if I don't know what my position is, I can't even reposition. I can't even think about repositioning. But in a situation where you either have a confused positioning, or you either have overpositioned yourself, or you have underpositioned yourself, or you probably have done bad positioning, then if you don't know where you are within the market in terms of how you want your customers or potential customers to see you in their minds, how then do you reposition?
I think that this is at the very heart of everything that we are speaking about right now. You realize that in the communication on the global stage this week, a lot is being said about our country and our currency being supposedly the worst performing this year and so on. And I heard some communicators saying that is not a true reflection of where we are.
Right.
Now, if we don't own our own space and position ourselves appropriately, somebody else will position us in a way that doesn't reflect who we are, and we end up fighting back and being reactive. So your positioning is absolutely important, and communicating your advantage is entirely your responsibility. Every individual is a brand. Every company is a brand. Every nation is a brand. And the brand's managers have the responsibility to communicate the brand advantage to their various publics. And it is not a reactionary responsibility. It's a continuum, week after week, month after month. And that is why even the President of the United States of America takes time every single week or whatever to bring his weekly address to the nation. That is why the Prime Minister's questions happen in the British Parliament every single week, because constantly we need to be in touch with people to let them know where we are as a brand. And this must be a lesson to us. The perception in the marketplace does not necessarily reflect the reality of your life, but when you don't own your space and communicate your strengths and advantages, somebody else will communicate about you. And when somebody tells your story, you can't be guaranteed that they will tell it the way you would like it to be told.
I see. That's a spot on. Just in case you just joined us, I'm talking to Reverend Albert Ocran, who's the lead consultant for the Legacy and Legacy. They are the brains behind the Festival of Ideas, which is coming up on the 14th of August at the Labadi Beach Hotel. But we want to just delve into the specific issues that will be looked at, and or the theme for this year's Festival of Ideas, which is in its 8th year. And we've so far touched on what is positioning, or how to reposition, the advantage of repositioning, and also why it is even more critical that we reposition in the times that we find ourselves in. I don't need to mention that. I mean, the economic hardships are there for all of us to see. And so Reverend Albert Ocran is helping us to understand why it is vitally important for you to reposition yourself. But do I only reposition, Reverend Albert Ocran? I'll ask this question, which is, do I only repositioning when I know that I'm in some kind of trouble, which is that things are not moving up well? I'm not meeting targets. I'm not making my shareholders happy. Is that the only time I need to reposition, or I have to constantly reposition even when I'm doing well? It's 0544-931-931. That's the text line in case you want to send us a text message, or you want to ask us any question you want to ask. Any contributions are welcome on our social media platform. That's Facebook, which is Radio XYZ 93.1 FM. You can send us some tweets to our Twitter handle, which is Radio XYZ 93.1. You can send me a WhatsApp message, which is 0544-931-931. Is anybody going to be winning any ticket today? I don't want to make any fake promises, okay? So no tickets for you, but the knowledge is even bigger. It's much more than a ticket. So there's anything you want to know, because Reverend Albert Ocran, as you may be aware, is a very busy man. He's been able to take time off his busy schedule to join us. So if you have any question you want to ask him concerning repositioning, or the subject matter, which is strategic repositioning, please do so by sending us a text or WhatsApp message 0544-931-931. When do I reposition? Do I only reposition when I'm in one form of trouble or the other, or I have to keep on repositioning regardless?
It is a continuum. Again, if you look at the Festival of Ideas, as I indicated earlier, it started as the Infopreneurship Conference, and without any provocation, we continue to redefine the target, and some of the original targets were reassigned to other programs just so this can target the right audience. So it is not surprising. When we had the first festival, there were a lot of students and startups there. We've redefined the festival this time to target top executives, and the students and the startups get to go to Springboard. That is what this is all about. You continuously look at what you are doing to ask yourself, who exactly am I targeting with this intervention? When you do that, you get better by the day. I think that the best examples of repositioning are those who do it not because they have a problem or a crisis or a challenge, but as a continuous improvement mechanism with a view to getting better at what you do, getting more profitable, staying relevant, because you can easily become irrelevant if you don't keep examining your offering, your competitive offering or your product offering on a consistent basis. So I think that the best kind of repositioning is the one that you do not just because you have a challenge, but just because you always want to get better at what you do and to serve your publics better. That is the key.
I see. Well, let's get back to this issue about what role policymakers must play in the scheme of things. I mean, we're talking about Festival of Ideas. Is there any specific role that policy players can play in this whole repositioning, effort or repositioning work on agenda that we're talking about here?
Yes, I think that the biggest challenge that policymakers have is uniting the country around one common purpose. Nobody else can play this role, no matter how we do this from below, no matter how we get business leaders together. I think that the biggest challenge is not even what do you call it? What happens at the Bank of Ghana is the signals that we send. I mean, somebody said that the central bank and policymakers, for that matter, have two responsibilities: regulation and signals. And while they may spend all their effort on regulatory aspect of their work, the second aspect is even more important, and that's the signals. When people observe a signal, they move. When troops observe a signal, they march.
Right.
When you go to the Independence Square and the soldiers are marching, the commander of the parade makes one signal and they all start moving.
Right.
Similarly, policymakers must redefine their responsibility towards sending signals, because a signal alone can affect the market. So while there are things that have to do with commodity prices and so on, when your head is bowed down, everybody will say there's a problem. When your head is lifted up, everybody will say there is hope. So even the position of your head alone can send a signal about how you see things.
Absolutely.
And I think that the first signal that we should gravitate towards as a people is gathering ourselves together. It's a difficult task, but it is the biggest task I think the leadership of this nation has. Bringing everybody to the table and saying, listen, we are where we are. The honesty, the boldness, the courage to say this is where we are and we want to move on from here. It is a task that we've not been very successful at for reasons that we can spend the whole day talking about.
Obviously for political reasons.
Somebody must take the bull by the horns and say, listen, and it's not very difficult. If we would look beyond our traditional way of doing things and say, listen, let me take a phone and call this person. Let me walk over to this person, not just for the cameras, but for authenticity. Walk over to this person, have a lunch hangout with this person. Let's really talk. Let's put aside our differences. Let's talk. How can we, in the space of where we are, because this ship, guess what? We are all in it. You may not like the captain, you may not even like the direction, but we are all in the ship.
Right.
And so the biggest thing that policymakers need to do is to send a signal. Signals, markets respond to signals, businesses respond to signals. When people get the feeling that something is about to change, that alone can let people begin to lift up their heads, bring their money back in, and that is what I will challenge policymakers to look at: signals.
That's interesting. I want us to, how do you suppose the Festival of Ideas can respond to this issue? You mentioned about signals and how important, or the implications and the consequences of signals. You bow your head down, it means something. Once it's up, it means another thing. How is the Festival of Ideas going to be addressing or respond to some of these issues?
It is one of the most important signals we will send as a country. Imagine if we talked earlier about Bloomberg, CNN, all these wires, these networks.
Huffington Post and all.
Yes, making all kinds of posts about where Ghana is. I mean, we got a call from our international guest speaker from Yale University yesterday asking, so he's reading all these things about Ghana on CNN and so on. He's asking, what is the situation on the ground? Now, we give him a different perspective. We give him a broader picture of things because he's limited to what is being posted on CNN,
Absolutely,
and so on. So we send him a clearer signal about what is happening on the ground. Not that we are, as it were, polishing the situation, but giving him a wider perspective, and that is important. So what is somebody reading out there? The biggest signal that we can send with the Festival of Ideas is that somebody will report that over 100 top executives of Ghana came together and talked about strategic repositioning. That alone is a positive signal. And I'm saying that it's not, there are two things in life. There is form and there is substance. Both have benefit, but beyond the form, beyond the nice picture of top business leaders brainstorming about the future, the real substance of it is that people will leave there with practical solutions that work. For me, that is the biggest reward.
Right.
That somebody can learn what somebody else has done and go and apply it, and their company can have some respite or a better platform on which to build their dreams. For me, that is so big.
But also be mindful that it is not one size fits all. I mean, there's some models that will not work within certain business contexts. I mean, I'm sure we're mindful of that as well.
Absolutely.
Right.
I do not believe that anyone has a prescription that would fit every situation in this country. That's what a brainstorming session does. It allows you to engage the thoughts of others. I won't be surprised that there would even be some contradictions, some very widely opposed points of view, but it is out of this mix of different thoughts that one can glean what works for you and walk away with a broader perspective. I love thinking. I love debate. I love writing. I love strategy. I love discussions that enable you to reach out for the very best within you. And I believe that in an environment like this, just one idea is what it takes. If you look at the speakers, you realize that the evening session, they're speaking for only 20 minutes.
Right.
It's not about long speeches. Listen, give me two ideas give me an example from a country that had a very difficult situation. Tell me about a Zimbabwean success story. Give me just two ideas I can use now. And that is what it's all about.
Or tell me
just
of the Malaysian success story.
One very, very, very great idea can turn things around for somebody who is looking for solutions.
Those of you who want to call us, some of you have sent us text message that you actually want to call. You don't want to text message. I just got a text here from Emma who says that, hi, Mr. Albert, we like the way you go about your things. May God richly bless you. But can I please get a ticket for Festival of Ideas? Unfortunately, we're not giving out any tickets today, but just keep listening to Radio XYZ. Who knows? We may give out a couple of tickets.
More, what I'll do is give a copy of our book, The Turning Point.
Sure. Do you have it here?
No, but I'll make it available to you.
Fantastic.
So yes,
that's a much better ticket. Trust me. That book, you have no idea. Anyway, this one's from Wafaya. Wafaya says that Mr. Albert Ocran is really refreshing to hear on Radio XYZ. I believe that you are the one who's going to inspire not just the current generation, but even the future generation, because you will be talked about forever. You are good at what you do. That's what fire. And this one from Christina says that, hi Moro, I think this interview with Albert Ocran, you must repeat it tomorrow because I really love it. Questions spot on. And Mr. Albert Ocran, why did you plan this together before he came? No, we didn't. It wasn't planned, but I sort of understood the thematic area that we're looking at, and so yes, that explains why that explains perhaps the chemistry. And this one says that, hi Mr. Albert Ocran, can I please get a ticket to Festival of Ideas on the 14th of August? Well, it's top 100 business executives, not just everybody going there to go and brainstorm. Sorry if I'm using just everybody, but if you're not at the top there, you're not at the top there. It doesn't mean you are down necessarily. So pardon or excuse my French. And this one says that, hi Moro, I really want to call into the show and have a chat with Mr. Albert Ocran. Would you please open the phone line? God bless you. I will open the phone lines in the next 5 minutes because there's still a couple of issues we need to tackle before. Some of you have started calling already. Please don't. I would open the phone lines. I'll give the green light. I'll give the signal for you to call. This one says, my name is Desmond. Please ask Mr. Albert Ocran, when is he going to come to IPS, now UPS, to come and address the students there. We really would pay anything to have him to come and address us. Thank you very much, Moro. This one says, hi, please, Mr. Albert Ocran, can I get a book that you just promised one of the listeners? I really would want to have that book as well, because anything from you I know is splendid. That's coming from Kofi. All right, so you can send your text messages on 0544 931 931. That's 0544 931 931. That's the text message line and also your WhatsApp line. I'm talking to Reverend Albert Ocran, who is the lead consultant for Legacy and Legacy. In fact, he's repositioned because in the beginning he wasn't the lead consultant. I think you were the you had a different position, Albert. Well, you have repositioned already. That's fine.
It's a continuum.
It's a continuum. Yes, a continuum. So I would open the phone lines in 10 minutes, maybe 5 minutes, by which time we would have exhausted most of the issues, hopefully. But Albert, I want us to look at this other issue that I want us to outline the various sessions, the topics that will be addressed, and the resource persons. Essentially, how is the day going to look like?
Well, let me start from the evening and come to the morning.
Okay.
Then it will be the first day. So the evening session is the main plenary. That's the main conference itself. We are gathering a little over 100 top business leaders. And those who saw by invitation the newspaper, it just simply means that it's not just an open forum.
Mm-hmm.
There are tickets available that business leaders are buying. But the main thing is that the Night with Great Minds is a very specially designed forum where the top CEOs, the top board members, the top leaders of businesses can bring their minds to bear on the issues of strategy, finance, marketing, and discuss how to move ourselves forward. There are 3 brief presentations. Dr. Vikram Mansharamani is a global equity investor based in Boston. He lectures at Yale University. He's coming down to be the lead facilitator on the subject of strategy. He will speak in the evening about the generalist advantage, how by broadening your expertise beyond just one of the things you know how to do, you can find your way through this maze, this economic maze. He has written extensively about 2 subjects that he will be talking about in the festival, one of which is about economic cycles. He's written a book called Boombastology, cycles, booms and busts, and how if you can read the market, you can tell when the cycle is about to change and jump in first and have an advantage. A bit like a turning point, but it's a very good one. And then the second subject that he's going to speak about is the generalist advantage, the fact that people may say you're a jack of all trades, but
that's exactly what I was going to say.
Broadening
he's
he's
the jack of all trades school of thought.
And he argues with specific instances that if you broaden your trade, and you must look at, if I look at myself, I cannot help but agree with him. I do quite a number of things, but it's a concentric diversification. I'm a pastor, I'm a teacher, I'm a consultant for companies, I write books, I do a radio program. It's just because an individual can multiply your talent in different directions. And that's what Vikram is an expert at. Then Dr. Mensah Otebo will talk about leadership mindset for changing times. When times are changing and environments are harsh, it requires a certain kind of leader who makes a certain kind of movement on the corporate front and at every other level, and that's going to be on leadership. The third one is Sangu Dele, who's also an equity investor. He will talk about financial optimization. Is your financing mix the best? Are there other ways you could finance your organization for growth? And these are the 3 brief presentations. But the high point for me of the festival, of course, it starts with an executive dinner. So for the first 1 hour, these leaders are having dinner and just interacting. Then the 3 presentations take the next hour. And the last hour is for me the most important, where the leaders talk. Roll up your sleeves and let's talk. What are you doing that is working for you? What can I learn from your example? And these are people who know each other. They meet in the marketplace every day. But in that kind of environment, the thinking is deep. The thoughts are huge. And that's what we want to create, a forum where leaders can brainstorm about the way forward. And I think that in that kind of very enabling environment, just one idea can click everything and change everything.
How am I going to brainstorm and sell my tactics and strategies to you if we all find ourselves in a similar industry?
The point is that for every one thing that you say, there will be 9 others that others will say that you can benefit from. So it is not even about industry secrets as much as what works as an individual company. You see, there is a saying that when you hold on to what you have, when we're in school, there are people who don't go for discussions. They learn alone. I had a friend who would actually cover the pages reading in the textbook, thinking that if anybody else sees what he's learning, it will affect him.
Right.
The results were not good for that friend of mine, sadly. But those who went for discussions and openly shared found out that sometimes what they were sharing could be refined by somebody else's contribution.
That's true.
So those who led the discussion and shared more rather got the ace. So it's not even about hiding what you know. It's about openly and freely interacting with others and sharing. And that becomes the best platform for learning and growing. And that's for the evening. The morning is 4 seminars. It's also a breakfast meeting, but with 4 seminars attached. Mm-hmm. So again, for the first hour is networking and breakfast, and then we break into 4 different meeting rooms at the Labadi Beach Hotel. And in these 4 rooms, the sessions available are the financial repositioning session, that is for managing your budget in an uncertain time. That will be handled by Charles Mensah. The target is mainly finance managers, accountants, chief financial directors or chief finance officers, as well as even CEOs, to understand what to do about this budget that is going awry because of currency devaluation as well as changing costs. Then the second option available is emerging trends in competitive sales and marketing environments. Again, people are undercutting their costs just to beat you and erode your market advantage. What do? Do you also cut your cost, or how do you respond to the fact that your first half sales has not hit your target? That will be handled by Professor Bob Hinson, who is widely known to your listeners. Vikram Mancharamani, who I mentioned earlier on, will handle a session called Spotting Bubbles Before They Burst, how to see opportunity ahead of time and seize it. And that's quite a popular option for many people. And then the final session is for legal people, compliance people, and HR people, those who deal with the state. It would focus on changing patterns of state business relationships. That will be handled also by another facilitator from Yale University, that is Professor Ian Shapiro. So these are the 4 options: finance, marketing, strategy, and then public-private relationships. So people break into these sessions and spend the rest of the morning till 12:30 in these training meetings. This is certified training. So we are encouraging companies to send your managers to these training sessions as well. So the morning is different from the evening. The morning is a training session, and the evening is an exclusive leaders gathering around the dinner and the brainstorming session.
Are there any certificates that will be giving out
for the morning sessions? These are certified training sessions, but
right.
the evening is focused on something else. It's more about solutions and about the networking.
Are the participants paying? Are they paying for this?
Yes,
for
they
this
are.
treat?
Yes, they are.
We
are
the service.
Very fortunate to have been sponsored by companies, but the participants are also paying for the sessions. The morning participants are paying 700 Ghana cedis. The evening participants, for the tickets that are available, are getting them for 1,000 Ghana cedis.
Okay, that's small comparing to what they're going to be getting in terms of how that is going to impact on their companies. But let's I want us to also look at the who really are the target participants for these various sessions.
So the main people we are focusing on are CEOs of companies, entrepreneurs, senior management, board members, and then public officials.
Okay. And then I want us to look at the what you want to talk about the cost and how competition participants register, or it's too late?
It's not too late. The number that people can call, or they can send email if it's more convenient for them. Email, send it to info@legacyandlegacy.com.gh. And when you do, we'll send you a comprehensive document that gives you all the speakers, all the topics they will be treating, as well as packages for companies that are sending more than 5 participants. We are happy to give you a 10% discount on that. And so, info@legacyandlegacy.com.gh. If you are not an email person and you want to make a quick call right now, do me this favor. Call the number 0544 315164. 0544 315164 or 0244 359393. 0244 359393. Just call and ask for the information pack, and we'll be happy to mail it to you and engage you on how you can be part of this festival of ideas.
If I am an individual who wants to participate in this all-important, event, what do I need to do? I mean, because clearly you're looking at corporate organizations.
If you're an entrepreneur, if you're an individual, you're most welcome. The main thing you need to do is to pay for it and attend. But I'll tell you one interesting thing that happened. So I was speaking to a CEO of an insurance company yesterday, and he said to me, I have these investors from Dubai in town a day before, and they are thinking of meeting Ghanaian business leaders. I can't just imagine my luck. And it's as easy as that. Right. Anyone who is looking for a forum where you will meet the top business leaders of this country in a networking platform, this probably may be the easiest way to find a number of them in one place. Cards are being exchanged. Ideas are being exchanged. I mean, if you are not willing to invest in your dream, then do not be surprised that you are where you are. Everyone who believes in your dream must be able to invest in that dream and aggregate where the eagles gather. And in that kind of platform, one contact, one connection can change everything. And so the biggest advantage of the festival is being in that place where the big players are. And we can talk big deals, we can talk big talk or big ideas about how to move our businesses and entities forward. I'm excited about the opportunity to not just meet together and send a signal to the whole world, but also to distill some very useful thoughts that can help move businesses forward. This is a very interesting time for us. But let me make a very significant statement on this platform, Moro. Ghana will come through this. Mark my words.
Really?
Ghana will come through this. You don't stay in a valley forever. We will come out of this. We will come out strong. We will come out well, and God will be our helper. Mark my words.
When, Albert?
Cycles and booms, one cannot tell. But if we hold together and we work at it, we will come out of this.
Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, so what do you hope to achieve by the end of this one day's event? I mean,
I am very clear in my mind what we want to achieve. One, we want to send hope. Hope is a commodity. Many times we underplay the importance of hope. Hope is what makes you put your money in an investment instead of spending it. You are hoping that you will get more in the future.
Right.
Hope is such an important commodity in nation building, business, and individual development. Hope is a commodity, it's an asset. In fact, politically, one of the biggest assets that you must market is hope. When people have hope, they wait in the queue. I once listened to former German President Horst Kohler speaking at the Great Hall University of Ghana on the invitation of former President Kufuor. And he was saying that when people are in the queue, and they have hope. They stay in the queue. They know that it will reach their turn one day. When people are in traffic and there's a traffic in front of them, they stay in the traffic knowing that it will reach their turn. If they begin to see people jump the queue and nobody's doing anything about it, they lose hope in the system, and then they decide that it's not worth staying, paying your taxes, staying in queue, doing what you have to do, because after all. And that is a dangerous situation. So hope is a very powerful commodity. And so when we gather business leaders and we give them hope about the future, we give them direction about the future, they continue to build, they continue to employ, they don't cut down their staff, and companies can look into the future with hope. That is critical. So if you ask me to drill down everything I want to achieve in the festival to one thing, I will talk about hope, I'll talk about signals, but very importantly, I'll talk about direction.
But your hope must be based on something.
Absolutely. The hope will be based on the tools that will be shared in the festival. You will be there, Moro. You will hear for yourself some of the amazing things. I've interacted with a number of these leaders in the past 1 month, and somebody said something to me. I would prefer that I don't say it on air, but somebody said something to me about something that he learned from a trip to New York about the possibilities of bridging finance between Ghana and the US, and how some very important opportunity was available that nobody knew about. And really, it just struck me like this, like a light going on in my mind. And just because you sat down for 10 minutes with a business leader, believe me, there are people who are gravitating around very exciting ideas that we could all share. And that is why I think that the hope is not a baseless hope. It is gravitating around ideas. In every crisis, in every challenging moment, great ideas, great thoughts, great concepts can turn things around. That is why I think that a program like the festival can be a turning point. It may not solve all our problems, but it provides a platform on which we can build towards the future.
Which is beyond the knowledge acquisition, that's also opportunity for networking, like you said, one or two persons.
And business. Don't forget that these are people who do business with each other, and you may just find new clients in an environment like that.
Let's look at what your future projection is. What's your vision with this for this Festival of Ideas?
Well, over the medium to long term, we want to raise a new generation of African leaders and executives who have confidence in what we bring to the table. Moro, you would find out from your own research that there are several Ghanaians doing amazing things all over the world. If we don't tell our story, nobody else will. One of the reasons why we write so many books is because we want to be able to tell our story. I was working in Germany, in a very remote town in Germany, and I meet somebody who has read extensively what I've written, and the person is from this part of Nigeria where they greet you by lying on the floor if they think that you are a very, very accomplished person. And the person wanted to greet me on the streets of Germany lying on the floor. Why? Because he has read my book. I'm just saying that we want to create people who are a new generation of Ghanaians who are happy to put out their message to the whole world, happy to think globally when they build their businesses, happy to think that their influence can spread across the continents of this world. We want to make our case that we as Ghanaians have a contribution to make. And so outside all the noise and the things that divide us, we also want to aggregate ourselves towards big dreams. And over the next 5 years, we are confident that the seeds that have been sown over the past 8 years with interventions like Springboard and like the Festival of Ideas, some of them will begin to bear fruit. Already, we have done quite a collection, Moro, that will be impressive, of businesses that were started directly as a result of Springboard, and they are in various industries: agriculture, services, manufacturing. We are quietly gathering them, and we'll begin to put them out there, and people will be impressed to find out that these are people, some of who were unemployed, who just listened to one Springboard program and rose up and said, I can do it. And they've gone on to build these businesses. Great nations are built around ideas, around thought. Read Greek mythology or Greek philosophy, Greek history, and Roman history. You will find out that really it is people gathering around, bringing ideas, challenging themselves, who built these nations. And Ghana can build a great nation if we stop focusing on what divides us and focus on what unites us: vision, thought, hope, leadership. We can do it in this country.
You know what excites me? The fact that you're doing your monitoring and evaluation both internally and externally. Which is that you're looking out there to find, okay, so how are we impacting on these people who will be sharing ideas and thoughts and all these brainstorming sessions with, and to actually go to the extent of collecting these how do you call it, these achievements, of which one day you're going to be sharing with us either through the media or something.
Absolutely.
It excites me because a lot of people do things without evaluating and monitoring to find out whether they are making any impact.
Well, we get to interact sometimes with the World Bank, with international agencies. We've had to submit. Put our submissions on the international front for the impact of what we do, and very often they are very structured form that captures details of the impact of the interventions. And so we have painstakingly gathered data over the years. We have pictures of everything we've done. We have videos of everything we've done. We record meticulously because our story must be told in the future. Let me end where I began. I began with football. Let me end with football. As I said to you, when I want to break something down to the level everybody can relate to, I use football. It's deliberate. Okay, so I everybody knows I support Manchester United, and we've had a very torrid season. And challenging times call for different approaches. He's seen why a new strategy. So we got a new coach who came on board, and from the very first day he says, I'm playing a different formation, 3-5-2. Everybody says, who plays that? Nobody plays that here. He says, I won't even give you a chance to play your old formation from day one. He says, all players speak English, train twice a day. He deliberately put his stamp on the team because he knows it's been a very difficult year, and if you play what they call in local parlance, lassie with the team, they'll go and flop again. And so one is saying, the players have not changed. How come they are playing better and more hungry this time? Leadership. Everything rises and falls on leadership. And so the need for a new strategy is anchored around the fact that whether we like it or not, some of the things we are doing have not worked. Or better still, the environment within which we are operating calls for a radical re-evaluation of what we do and a determined effort to move ourselves forward. And that is why I believe that the Festival of Ideas provides the perfect platform for business leaders to gather, rethink what we do, and to move ourselves to the next level. And we are trusting God that based on the responses we've had so far, we'll have a fantastic festival, great attendance, great ideas, a great environment, and maybe a year from now, we'll have some testimonies of companies that say, I came into the festival with a lot of questions, I left with one great idea, and here I am. It's just become a great company in this country.
No, you've been a blessing to us, Albert, and you know, I keep asking myself, Albert, that what is it that drives you? What is it that motivates you? I mean, you wake up every day and you want to change lives. I mean, why?
I think it's a calling. You probably will know that in addition to everything I do, I'm also a pastor. I believe it's a calling. I believe it's an opportunity God has given me. I am a beneficiary of the wisdom of several people. I have been guided and coached by others, and I have this wonderful opportunity to also impact the lives of other people through what I do. And the fulfillment I get from it is the belief that God has called me to do this and He's blessed me to do this. And I also get quite inspired by the results of what we do. It's meeting somebody who's read your book or getting an email from somebody in a remote country a faraway country you've never been before, and they say, I read your book, it changed my life. It's always very refreshing, and that's what keeps driving me.
There's one sponsor and partner whose name you've left out, and as for this one, I will protest. In fact, she's your number one sponsor and partner in all this, and I'll give a big thumbs up to Comfort.
That's my boss.
She's your employer.
Both at home and at work.
Have a good day, sir.
Enjoy us tomorrow. Thanks for having me.
That's Reverend Albert Ocran, who is the lead consultant for Legacy and Legacy.
Inviting all business leaders, corporate heads, and decision makers. Unleash the power of the Mastermind Group as you join forces with top leaders from various industries and strategize on how to provide 21st century leadership, stay profitable, and sustain business growth. The Festival of Ideas 2014 will have 2 sessions. There will be a breakfast room training seminar with 4 options on strategy, finance, marketing, and public partnerships. The evening will be an exclusive dinner for organizational heads dubbed A Night with Great Minds. Theme: Strategic Repositioning. Date: 14th August. Venue: La Beach Hotel. Speakers: Dr. Vikram Mansharamani and Professor Ian Shapiro, both of Yale University. Dr. Mensa Otavel, Professor Bob Henson, Mr. Charles Mensa, Mr. Sangudeli, and host Albert and Comfort Ocran. Call 0544-315164 or 0244-359393 for details and reservations. Ideas 2014 is brought to you by Legacy and Legacy and sponsored by Delta Airlines, La Beach Hotel, Manet Properties, and IFS Financial Services. Media partners: Daily Graphic, The Finder, and Dream Oval. Live FM, Radio XYZ, BNFT, and Joy 99.7 FM. Inviting all business leaders, corporate heads, and decision makers. Unleash the power of the Mastermind Group as you join forces with top leaders from various industries and strategize on how to provide 21st century leadership, stay profitable, and sustain business growth. The Festival of Ideas 2014 will have 2 sessions. There will be a breakfast and training seminar with 4 options on strategy, finance, marketing, and public partnerships. The evening will be an exclusive dinner for organizational heads dubbed A Night with Great Minds. Theme: Strategic Repositioning. Date: 14th August. Venue: La Beach Hotel. Speakers: Dr. Vikram Mansharamani and Professor Ian Shapiro, both of Yale University. Dr. Mensa Otabel, Professor Bob Henson, Mr. Charles Mensa, Mr. Sangudeli, and host Albert and Comfort Ocran. Call 0544-315164 or 0244-359393 for details and reservations. Ideas 2014 is brought to you by Legacy & Legacy and sponsored by Delta Airlines, La Beach Hotel, Manet Properties, IFS Financial Services, and Joy 99.7 FM.